Hi there, and welcome to a project which I've been working on over the last 2 or 3 days. I thought it'd be rather nice to produce a musical talking clock in Sonic Pi. Obviously, it's not really feasible to produce graphical displays with Sonic Pi, but I have got running separately from this an analog clock face in processing, which enables us to check what the time is and to relate that to the output which Sonic Pi is going to produce. Basically, it has got various forms of output which can all be enabled or disabled. The first of these produces a rising scale which plays every tenth of a second. The second produces a rising and falling scale or series of scales which play every second. The third of these enables a speech option where it's going to announce the time at the start of each minute and also give an indication when 15, 30 and 45 seconds are passed through the minute. And the final one, I've incorporated Westminster Chimes with the clock, so it will play the quarter, half and three-quarter peals, and it'll play a full peal just before the hour, and it'll play the bongs of the hour, one for each hour which has elapsed. And we'll keep an eye on the time and see whether we can actually perhaps listen to the half-minute one, half-hour one, although it is possible to fiddle this by changing the time at which these chimes will occur for demonstration purposes. The other thing to say is that although I'm using this on a Mac because it's easier for me to do the videoing, I have actually also got it running on a Raspberry Pi, and if we look at the feed from my iPad, which is looking at the screen alongside, you can see it running there, and I'll just turn up the volume of the amplifier attached to that. Seconds, and you can just about hear it's being picked up by the microphone on my Mac, which is not going to get the beeps very well. 45 seconds, and you could hear the 45 seconds being announced, and you'll hear the minutes being announced when it gets to the top of this. It's not very clear, but we'll do it on the Mac in a minute to make it clearer. 2 seconds. 70 hours, 20 minutes. There we are. And so we'll just turn the volume down on that, and you can see that it does operate on a Raspberry Pi, although I'm going to switch back to the Mac now so that we can demonstrate it on here. In fact, we probably had, no, we haven't got sounds enabled in this one, so you wouldn't have heard anything here. Let's first of all just turn on the, well, we have got them all enabled, but I haven't started the program running. That's what it is. So let's just disable that, and I'll retype that in a minute, that, and we'll start this running. Oops. And you can hear that the first thing it produces are quite quiet, because this is going to run all the time. You don't want it to drive you demented, so it's just supposed to be a very background quiet noise. Each one of those tones is a tenth of a second apart. We'll add into that another tone which runs on the second, and we'll add into that some speech, it'll announce the minute when it gets to the top. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 17 hours, 22 minutes. So 17:22. It'll announce the quarter minute.
15 seconds.
Now it's going to take quite a long time to get to the half hour, which will be the next time that the chimes are going to sound.
30
But
seconds.
if I move down the program to the bottom here, we can actually fiddle this by saying, it's the moment it says, if the minutes are 15 and the seconds are 0, play the quarter chime, chimes Q.
Seconds.
So I'm going to change that to say, if the minutes are, it's now 22 past, so let's say 23. And if we get that in time, we'll just about do it.
17 hours, 23 minutes.
No, it didn't quite get there in time. Let's change that to 24. And see if it'll pick up the next one. So that's 15 minutes. Seconds. You can see the program is not hugely long.
30 seconds.
This section here is setting up all the data for the chimes. This is going to play the sample, which is going to give the chimes. I'm using ambiglass rub with a lot of G-verb around it when we play it. Let's keep quiet now and see if we can hear this, hopefully working this time. Oh no, it won't. I forgot to enable the chimes up here, which is why it didn't actually work. So at least the program is doing what it should do. That means before we say run again to pick that up, we need to come down here and get the chime to run down here when we are at 25 past the hour, which is the next minute which is coming up. So that's 25,
30
it's 25
seconds.
minutes and 0 seconds. It'll do it, provided we run again, so it picks that up. And let's see whether it does so this time. So we've got just about 15 seconds now.
45 seconds.
10, 5,
17 hours, 25
So there was
minutes.
the quarter chime coming in as we expect. Let's make the half minute go at 26 minutes. Let's make the 3/4 chime
seconds.
Go at 27 minutes. And let's make the hour chime go
30
at
seconds.
28 minutes. And I'll explain how I'm doing this in a minute. Just get it set up and then start those running. Now, what we have to do for the hour chime is to play the chimes before the hour so that the bongs of the hour can actually come out on the correct minute. But let's be quiet for the half hour chimes coming up in 4 seconds.
17 hours, 26 minutes.
That would normally be at 30. We'll put that one back again, ready for it to come up at the correct time. The half-hour chime should come up at 30, so let's put that back to 30, and we'll rerun that again. Got rather a crazy clock here because it does its chimes all at the wrong time. So in half a minute we should be ready for the 3/4 hour chime, because I've set that to go here at 27 minutes, which is the next minute we're coming up to in about 15 seconds from now.
45 seconds.
So hopefully, because the chimes are enabled now, this should work in 5 seconds from now.
17 hours, 27 minutes.
That's the half-hour chime. A three-quarter hour chime, sorry, I beg your pardon.
15 seconds.
And we should get this next minute starting slightly earlier, the full chime, and then the bongs for the hour occurring at 20 minutes, 28 minutes. So, in fact, the chimes will start going in about 2 or 3 seconds. There we go.
45 seconds.
Which allows a short gap before the hour bongs. This would normally be the top of the hour. So it's doing 5 because it thinks it's 5 o'clock, even though we're doing it a little late. And so that shows you the chimes going. And
15 seconds.
we may find if you're going to use this clock running in the background that it would possibly be slightly less obtrusive if we were just to turn off
30 seconds.
the tenths beeps. Just have the beeps every second. It'll still announce the quarter minutes.
45 seconds.
And it'll announce the minutes. Look up here as this announces in the
hours,
it says
29 minutes.
number to speak is 17, then number to sample to speak 29. And this gives an idea of how we actually generate the speech.
15 seconds.
I've got samples recorded for the numbers 1 to 20, 30, 40, 50, and seconds, minutes, and hours. And so if you have something like 32,
seconds.
it actually works out that it needs to say 30, leave a short gap, and then say 2. And that's how you get it, a bit like the speaking clock. I even got as far as realizing that when we get to 1 minute past the hour, we don't want minutes.
Seconds.
So what it does is it plays the sample for minutes, but it adjusts the finish time so that it cuts off the S, and it says 1 minute.
17 hours, 30 minutes.
Right, that was the half-hour chime, exactly as it should be on the half hour, because we've set the values at which it should be triggered down here. If we look at chimes H, which is the half-hour chime, to be at 30 minutes. We'll set this one back to its normal value, which is 45, and we'll set this one back to its normal value, which will be 59 minutes plus a certain number of seconds, which I've called anticipate int. We subtract that from 60, and that tells us how many seconds before the we have to start. And because it's a fractional number, we also have a set sleep for the fractional part of those number of seconds, and that gets everything playing nicely. You'll see that there's an inhibit function in here which is going to stop playing the chimes if we have that inhibit set
15 seconds.
True. Oh, sorry, no, that is to stop when the chimes are playing on the hour. It's going to actually stop the announcement of the minute, because the two get very overlapped. Whereas if it's just playing the quarter or the half chime, then it's not too bad, and I leave them running. But there's lots of possibilities like this, because this is entirely programmable to do exactly what you want. So there we have the whole program. As I say, the first bit is look at generating the chimes. You can see the notes there for these sequences with rests between them.
32 minutes,
what I'm going to do is actually just to, while I'm talking, we'll turn off the speech, and then it won't be interrupting me so
15
much,
seconds,
and it'll be easier to understand what I'm saying. So, as this goes on, we have a function which is going to play the sample, and we have another function which is going to play the chimes. We feed it with the list of notes and durations that we want to play, and that is played in here. And we then have a separate function which is going to play the bongs at the hour, and that is done here. We have to allow for the fact we've got a 24-hour clock, so if n is 0, and that's what the time function will return at midnight, it's going to actually play 12 bongs. And because we're on a 24-hour clock, otherwise, if n is above 12, we subtract 12 from the number of hours and play that number of chimes. This is the section which works out the speaking, and it's going to, first of all, look and see how many digits we've got. It's going to divide integer division the number by 10 to get the first digit, and it's going to get the second digit of any by taking the remainder when it divides by 10. If the number itself was less than 21, then we can simply speak the sample directly. That mute sample is used so that it doesn't speak we're setting that amplitude to 0 if we've muted the speech. The reason I've not just muted the whole sample is I still want it to print the information on the right-hand side of the screen over here, regardless of whether we're actually playing speech or not. Otherwise, above 20, it'll be 2 samples possibly, so we've got to, first of all, speak the first number, and then we've got to look up from the sample position in the sample folder, and these are going to be samples 20, 21, 22, 23. Remember, they actually number from 0 in the array, so we're going to work out which of these we should speak, and that's going to speak the second number. We've got some time delays here so that the speech doesn't run into itself, and we leave a gap then, and we work out whether it's hours or minutes or seconds that we're talking about and play the relevant sample for that as well. And here is the little patch I was telling you about, that we can change the finish value to 0.58 if we're 1 hour and 1 minute. If we're playing the hours and minutes, we can cut the S at the end of minutes here. HM is just the flag which tells it that it's going to play this sample rather than that one. And so that's that section. These are just using the Ruby function time.now.hour.now.minute and .now.second to return the numbers for different times. I've just used those in functions to make it slightly quicker to type them out elsewhere in the program. One little thing I have done is I've taken the remainder when divided by 60 for seconds, because this will deal with leap seconds and it will produce a 60 seconds, and that would actually bamboozle the speech section a bit. So I just have 2 zeros if that happens. Then we have a section which is going to announce the time at the top of the minute. It's going to tell you the number of hours and the number of minutes. And then we get the section which is going to play the notes of the scales that we hear going up and down, and it's also going to announce the 15, 30 and 45 seconds. Then we get the sections which are going to play the chimes. I've got a separate live loop for each one, one of the major problems I've had in the program is trying to reduce time delays in it. It's been quite hard to do, and I still think there may be one when garbage disposal takes place in Ruby, because very importantly, one thing I didn't say, right at the top of the program, you have to use schedule ahead time 0. There's not much point in having a clock if it's running behind the time. And that means you've got very little leeway to allow for things taking too long. But generally it seems to recover and keep going if we do get some time delays taking place. So we've got one of these which works out the number of minutes and seconds and plays the relevant chime. And finally, at the very end of the program, we send a cue go to start all of the live loops in synchronism at the change of seconds. And I simply do that by reading the current seconds, waiting until it's gone on by 1, and then sending a cue to start all of the loops together. So there we have it, both on a Mac and on a, it's gone to sleep, and on a, there, that's got a little timing issue there, but I think if we turn the time up, it will hopefully still be running. When that goes, and if you see that, you can always just rerun and it'll pick up where it lasts from. But I don't think there's an awful lot I can do about the problems here when this occurs. So you just have to put it up as a slight glitch in the thing. But maybe with further work, we might manage to get something working there. So at any rate, I will publish the program for this, so you can give it a whirl, and also a list of a folder of my samples, though it's very easy to make your own. You just have to record the words that I've said, and provided that you list them in the same order, which is given up here at the top of the program, then you can do it yourself. Okay, so we'll stop that running and we'll stop the video. 30.